Hello, this is Irina O'Hara, and this is my final presentation for CIT260. I would like to start with static class versus non-static class variables. Instance variables are declared in a class, but outside a method, constructor, or any block. When a space is allocated for an object in the heap, a slot for each instance variable value is created. Instance variables are created when an object is created with the use of the keyword new and destroyed when the object is destroyed. They are property of an object, so they can be accessed using object only. Here I have a snippet of code where I declare a variable in a class but outside of a method, and it's a game with a name game equals new game. And then I'm calling this variable from inside of a method, game.setPlayer. And then static variables. Class variables, also known as static variables, are declared with a static keyword in a class, but outside a method, constructor, or a block. There would only be one copy of each class variable per class, regardless of how many objects are created from it. They are a property of a class, not of an object, so they can be used directly using class name as well as using object. And here's an example declared with a static word in a class. It's public static void with a name create new game. Let's talk about arrays and array lists and enums. Use cases for all of them are quite a bit different. Use arrays to store primitive data and objects. Arrays are fixed in length. And here is an example of an array initializer, which declares and assigns some values to an array. And then use array list when need a dynamic array and ability to add more objects to it. So array list with a name tools equals new array list, and then to add some values I'm using add method, and so it becomes tools that add and then values. Enum is a fixed size list of constant values. Enums are most useful when using switch statements, and here's an example. Enum coins, and then just the names of coins. And when a user calls a certain name, I can use it in a switch statement and call an appropriate function according to a value that the user input. For statement. So in my game, I actually used for each, and here's an example. Here's a public void of a name display tools. First thing I do is I print on the screen so a user can see a list of tools, and I say list of tools, and then I'm creating a array list with a name tools, and I'm looping through all objects in that array list, and it prints out a name and a number of tools in the storage. How to throw, propagate, and catch custom runtime errors. So here's a snippet of code. It's a method called plant crops from crop-control.java file. And here I am throwing some examples of exceptions. For example, if I do not want to accept a value that is a negative value, because acres to plant cannot be less than a 0. So if a user inputs that kind of value, the program will show a error message which gonna say number of acres to plant should be larger than 0. And there is another example when acres owned cannot be less than acres to plant, and a user will see a message that says you should have enough acres to plant on. And then here's a code from my cropview.java file, and here first of all I am getting some values from the game object, and then I'm using a do while loop to display a message, and I'm asking a user how many acres of land he would like to plant, and then a user enters a certain value, and then the program tries to evaluate if it's a valuable a number or not. And if it's not, it throws an error message and then starts again. So it's gonna start asking the user the same question of how many acres of land to plant, and so on. So character streams versus byte streams. Java byte streams are used to perform input and output of 8-bit bytes, whereas Java character streams are used to perform input and output for 16-bit Unicode. Though there are many classes related to character streams, but the most frequently used classes are file reader and file writer. Though internally, file readers uses a file input stream, and file writer uses file output stream. But here the major difference is that a file reader reads 2 bytes at a time, and file writer writes 2 bytes at a time. And here I have examples of code from my game project, and on the right you see a method called save game, and I'm using a file output stream to save the game object, and then on the left there is a get saved game method that uses file input stream and uses try and catch to get a previously saved game. And here's the end of my presentation, but I would like to move on to the actual code and run my game. So when I start the game, it shows the main game menu, and what I can do, I can get some help on how to play the game. So it's gonna show me some another menu, and it's called help menu, and there are multiple options, and I can see what the goals of the game are, where's the city of Erin is located, and it shows me the city of Erin is located near the cities of Maranai and Nifaiha. And then how do I view the map, some instructions, and there is more to it. And then I am going back to the main menu, and I'm gonna start the new game. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I'm gonna that was weird. I'm gonna start the new game again. Yes. So ask for my name, and then I can do the map. Here's the map right here, and then I can print a list, and it shows me a list menu. I can see how many animals, and here I see which kind of animals and number of animals, and then the same with tools, and then the same with provisions. And then I'm returning to the game menu view, and then I can manage the crops. So how many so it shows me how many acres of land I have, how many bushels, people, and then it tells me what's the price to sell, and ask me to how many acres I would like to buy. So let's say 20, and then sell, let's say 10, and then to the people I would like to give 300, and I would like to plant, let's say 400, Yeah, okay, lets me to plant, and then I want to make an offering, and then the rest it runs some more functions and calculates how many bushels of wheat I harvested, and how many bushels of wheat paid in offering, and so on. And then I can return to the main menu, and yeah, and I'm gonna try saving the game. So save game, file name, here is game, and then okay, it's saved. I'm gonna quit, and I want to restart the game. Okay, and a previously saved game has been restored. So this concludes the Java game, City of Erin, and thank you very much.